A large study tracking more than 100,000 people over nearly 15 years has found associations between certain common food preservatives and a modestly higher risk of cancer, including breast and prostate cancer. Published in the BMJ, the research examined 17 food preservatives and identified several that correlated with elevated cancer risk across the study population. The findings have generated significant attention, and understanding what they actually mean and what they do not mean is essential before drawing conclusions about what to change in your own diet. What the study found: researchers tracked dietary patterns and health outcomes in over 100,000 participants for an average of nearly 15 years. Of the 17 preservatives examined, a subset showed statistically significant associations with higher overall cancer risk. Potassium sorbate, potassium nitrate, sodium nitrite, and sulfites were among those linked to increased risk of cancer overall, as well as specific cancers including breast and prostate. Other preservatives associated with more specific cancer types included potassium metabosulfite, acetic acid, sodium erythorbate, and several nitrate and nitrite compounds. Propionates found in refined cereals and baked goods, and ascorbates and citrates found in processed fruit and vegetable products also appeared in the findings. This is a large and methodologically serious study, and the consistency of associations across a population of this size and duration is worth taking seriously. But the critical qualifier that researchers themselves emphasize is that the study demonstrates association, not causation. People who consumed more of these preservatives also tended to consume more ultra-processed foods overall, which are independently associated with higher cancer risk through multiple mechanisms, including lower nutrient density, higher caloric load, and the presence of other potentially harmful compounds. Disentangling the specific contribution of individual preservatives from the broader dietary pattern they are embedded in is genuinely difficult, and this study cannot fully accomplish that separation. The confounding factor of ultra-processed diets. This distinction matters considerably for interpreting the results. Processed meats containing sodium nitrite, for example, are also high in saturated fat, sodium, and calories. Packaged baked goods containing propionates are also high in refined flour and added sugar. Breakfast cereals containing tocopherols are often also high in added sugar and low in fiber. A person whose diet is heavily weighted toward these foods is exposed to the preservatives the study flagged, but they are also eating a dietary pattern that nutrition research has consistently linked to worse health outcomes through many pathways beyond preservatives alone. The researchers and independent nutrition experts consulted on this study uniformly note that the findings likely reflect, at least in part, the overall impact of diets high in ultra-processed foods, rather than the isolated action of specific preservative compounds. Labels also do not disclose the exact quantities of preservatives used, which makes precise exposure measurement difficult and introduces uncertainty into the dose-response relationship the study is attempting to characterize. Where these preservatives show up. Understanding which foods contain the flagged preservatives helps translate the research into practical awareness. Sulfites appear in wine, dried fruits, some packaged shrimp, and certain canned vegetables. Nitrates and nitrites are most concentrated in processed meats, including hot dogs, bacon, deli meats, and sausages, where they serve both as preservatives and as color-fixing agents that give cured meats their characteristic pink color. Potassium sorbate is widely used in cheese, baked goods, wine, yogurt, and many packaged snack foods. Propionates are common in commercially produced breads and refined cereal products. Many of these preservatives cluster heavily in the category of ultra-processed foods, including sweetened yogurts, frozen convenience meals, energy drinks, shelf-stable baked goods, sugary cereals, packaged snacks, and instant noodles. It is worth noting that not all preservatives in the study were associated with elevated cancer risk. Of the 17 examined, only a subset showed meaningful associations, which means the finding is not a blanket indictment of food preservation as a practice, but a more specific signal about particular compounds. What the risk actually looks like. The word modestly in the researchers' characterization of the elevated risk is doing important work. The absolute increase in cancer risk associated with higher preservative intake in this study was not dramatic. The relative risk increase was statistically significant at the population level, but individual risk from occasional consumption of foods containing these preservatives is not comparable to the risk posed by established major cancer risk factors like smoking, obesity, chronic alcohol use, or significant family history. Frequency and quantity of consumption matter considerably. Occasional intake of foods containing these preservatives poses categorically different risk than daily high-volume consumption concentrated across a diet dominated by ultra-processed options. The concern is not the person who eats a hot dog at a summer cookout or uses a splash of wine in a recipe occasionally. The concern is the dietary pattern in which processed meats, packaged snacks, and convenience foods form the daily foundation of eating. Practical steps that actually make sense. The appropriate response to this research is not to panic or to conduct an emergency purge of every packaged food in the kitchen. Preservatives serve genuine functions. They extend shelf life, reduce food costs, and minimize food waste, which has its own environmental and economic value. The goal is proportion and pattern rather than elimination. Reading ingredient labels is a practical starting point. When comparing similar products, choosing options with shorter ingredient lists and fewer additives is a reasonable preference that requires no specialized knowledge. Limiting processed meats specifically, given the accumulating evidence connecting them to colorectal and other cancers from multiple research directions, is among the more evidence-supported dietary adjustments available. Building meals primarily around whole and minimally processed foods, including vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, and unprocessed proteins, naturally reduces exposure to the preservatives flagged in this research without requiring detailed tracking of individual additives. Natural preservation methods, including fermentation, vinegar, salt, and herbs and spices, are increasingly available in commercial products and provide shelf stability without synthetic additives. Rosemary extract, for example, has shown potential in laboratory research as a natural preservative with anti-cancer properties rather than the opposite. Consumer demand for cleaner ingredient lists has driven meaningful reformulation across many food categories in recent years, which means that choosing products from manufacturers who have moved toward natural preservation is increasingly viable across product types. The broader principle this research reinforces is one that nutrition science consistently supports. Overall dietary pattern matters more than any single ingredient or compound. A diet built primarily around whole, minimally processed foods, with ultra-processed options consumed occasionally rather than as a daily foundation, reduces exposure to the full range of potentially harmful additives, while simultaneously delivering the nutrients, fiber, and phytochemicals that protective diets are characterized by. No individual preservative flagged in this study changes that foundational equation.